found it. All right, we got Amberley Snyder on here. How you doing?
So good. How about you?
Another day. I mean, any day on this side of the daisies is a good day, so we're here.
I like it.
But so where are you from?
I am in Utah. I'm from Utah.
Is that born and raised, or where you wound up?
I was born in California, but raised in Utah.
I got you. Well, your story is obviously going to be different than any of these I've done. And like I told you before we started recording, you know, I'm a country music artist that we decided we wanted to start trying to interview some of the Cowgirls after this song, Keep Up With A Cowgirl, kind of took off. And when I saw your story, I realized that my whole script is going out the window because it's a totally different story than everybody else's. And I'm sure you tell it time and time again, but you know, for my listeners and the folks here that maybe don't know the rodeo scene, you might be new to them. So I am going to start at the very beginning, like I always do. And that's where did you get your start? What inspired you? Were your family into it, or just start from the beginning? Let's go there.
So my family, there wasn't a lot of horses until I came along. My mom had a horse when she was younger, but didn't get to rodeo like I was able to after I came. But she saw that I had an interest in them. So she wanted to make that possible. So in California at 3 years old, they found a place that would take a 3-year-old to start doing lessons. That's what I started doing. When my family moved to Utah when I was 7, that was when I started competing in rodeo. I had told my dad I would only move to Utah if he bought me a Palomino Burro horse when we got here. So that's what he did. And I started competing then and absolutely loved it. So I feel like, you know, I think it was born into me. I wouldn't say that it was anywhere else but that, especially with how ingrown I think it is at this point. I think that it was already there, but I'm really thankful that I had parents that saw it and allowed it to happen and made it possible.
All right, so I'm going to jump in right there because you say 3 years old, which is ironic because for me, I can tell you the moment. My mom and dad took me to see George Strait back in Little Rock, Arkansas, where I'm from, when I was 3. And from that day on, all I want to do is be George. Realized I couldn't be George, I better be me. So what do you think clicked it? I mean, was there a single moment that you remember that happened, or is it just that's all you remember? Or, I mean, what clicked at 3? That's crazy.
I don't know. I don't know if I can even remember that part. I think it's, like I said, I've always liked horses. I've always wanted them. I had, instead of baby dolls, I had horses, right? Like that's just what I had. And that's what I wanted. And I could have been, I mean, my first birthday, and I'm not going to remember that, but my first birthday, my mom got little ponies that came to the house for us to ride around for my first birthday. I don't know. Maybe it was then. I wasn't
just
sure.
Nudged you just enough.
Yeah, just enough that that's where I wanted to be.
I love it. So I know I was talking to Miss Donna Kay earlier, and you know, she mentioned there wasn't age restrictions when she started out. So she started at 13. So what age were you when you really truly got to start competing?
I mean, I started at 7, but I'm sure she was talking about like she got to pro rodeo when she was younger at 13.
Yeah.
And for me, it wasn't like that. I mean, I did the normal kid route. There was age restrictions when I came along. So, you know, I did the junior high rodeos and the junior rodeos and the high school and all of that. I really didn't get to start pro rodeoing until after my accident when I got my permit then.
Oh, okay. So it was, you went through all the turmoil and all the challenges, let's just call it that for the time being, before you even really started competing on that big level then.
Well, yeah, on the pro rodeo, because it's, I mean, you had to be 18. So for me, there was age restriction. So you didn't really do that step until you were 18 years old. And I wrecked when I was 18. So that it would have happened right there at that 18-year-old year if I'd had control over that, but I didn't. So then it took me a bit longer.
I got you. Okay. Well, then if that's the case, then let's jump right in, because this is where your story gets unique compared to anybody else that we've talked to. So, you know, you're figuring it out, you know what you want to do. The accident happens. It would be so easy just to roll over, feel bad for yourself, say it's over, but you didn't. You just kept rolling. I mean, what was the motivation? What was life like? I mean, take us from that point in time and tell us how you got from there to where you are now.
So it was January of 2010 that I was on my way to Denver, Colorado, and I was involved in a rollover truck accident where I was ejected from my truck, left me paralyzed from the waist down from hitting a fence post on the side of the road. And it was a lot of starting over at that point in order to get what I wanted to do. I mean, from day one, I was getting back on a horse. That really wasn't negotiable to me. That was what I was going to do. It was harder than I imagined it was going to be. So that first day back on was 4 months after, and that day was terrible, honestly, because I realized it was never going to be the same. So I had to go through the changes, right? This is, like you said, this is where my life gets a little bit different because I had to figure out how to ride again. I had to figure out, okay, I can't use my legs to sit on this horse. What am I going to do to stay here? And had a seatbelt put on my saddle, and my legs moved too much. So my horse didn't know what I was asking him. So we had to figure out to Velcro my straps, or Velcro straps around my legs, and my feet rubber banded in, and all of these pieces in order to get back on a horse. And it was a process. So it was 18 months after my accident that I was able to actually compete again. And I wish it didn't even take me that long. But there was a process in there that I feel like I had to like take a step back from the horses and learn how to live life in a chair. And then once I could figure that out, then I went back.
True competitor. I love it. I love it. Well, that's awesome. Yes, I had no clue. I figured maybe you'd been out on the circuit for a while before it happened. So I'm learning as I go. I've been smart enough to read up just a little bit, but I want the story to come straight from y'all, because I know how it is with me when I get interviews. I can tell when it's the read version, but that blows my mind. That's just amazing, and I love that you had that drive in you. I don't want to use my comparison in any way, but I've as an artist, you go through battles. I've had so many setbacks, and a lot of artists would give up and quit, and you just keep going. But it's just when it's in your blood and it's what you do, it's all you know how. And so I do feel like I relate with you there in tiny little bit. But so okay, if that's the case, then I can actually go on some of these questions, because it's going to really prep up as far as the day and the process. So what's different with you? What changed on your obviously you talked about you had to kind of relearn how to ride and how you're going to do it, but your process with training and competing, I mean, how did that change, I guess, is what I'm trying to ask.
Well, I think the biggest thing, right, is I couldn't do anything by myself so much anymore. So I had to have help. I can't just, even right now, I can't just be like, all right, I'm going to go ride right now, and I'm going to go catch my horse, saddle my horse. Well, I can, but it's not safe. I guess I've learned my lesson.
Something tells me you learned that yourself without.
Yeah. I could go out right now. I could catch my horse, saddle, and get on, do the whole thing. It's freaking hard. It takes way longer than it should. So I've learned that it's honestly just even more time efficient and safer if I don't do that route. I've gotten enough reps at this point that I don't really like doing that anymore. I don't like being hurt. I don't like being more hurt than whatever I am all the time. Like, I don't like being more hurt than that. I don't like breaking bones. I don't like getting smashed. So I'm like, you know what? I wait for help. That's probably the biggest change as far as like my training schedule, because I mean, it kind of has to base around who can be here to help me do that. So that's kind of a big part. The second part, I would say the biggest thing is, just what I can ride and how I can ride. And so I don't ride things that are going to be bronky or crazy or, any of those things. Like, I'm over that. And I also learned my lesson there. After my wreck, I thought I could still ride everything I wanted to ride. Well, yeah, after a few mishaps, I decided that really wasn't a good decision either. So I'm more careful about what I get on. Because once again, I don't need to be hurt. I don't need to be in a situation that's going to keep me from being the person I want to be and the goals I have. So those are two things that have changed a whole lot. As far as like, my riding schedule, I mean, as long as I have the help lined up, I'm going to ride when I'm home. I'm also a motivational speaker. So that does shift my schedule a bit as well, a little different than other competitors, because I have that job too.
I want to go into that because I read that about you, but also your help system and support system. So do you have specific people that come out and travel with you and go with you to the rodeos and the events, or how does that all work for you?
Yeah. So during the actual like rodeo season here for the wilderness circuit, my friend will quit her job and she comes and works with me in the summer. So that worked out 2 years ago when I decided I wanted to make the circuit finals. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm gone way too much. And at first I thought I could make it work. I could switch like I normally do. So normally it's a parent or a friend or a boyfriend or whoever, like it kind of just swaps out whose schedule can work to come with me. And that's worked for the entire time.
Yeah.
Up until, I wanted to make circuit finals. Well, then that required a whole different level of travel. That you're gone. I mean, you could be gone for an entire week at a time, not just leave on Friday and home on Sunday type concept. So then she started doing that. But once it's like right now, I can go back to my normal thing, where as long as I've got somebody on the trailer with me, then I can go.
Okay, so you talked about being gone there, and that leads to one of the questions that I found intriguing because it's been so across the board. How much do you try to stay out and compared to staying home? Or are you kind of pick and choose, or do you want to be out as often as possible?
My schedule is a little different because the other girls you're going to talk to that rodeo, like theirs is just going to be the rodeo schedule. So theirs is going to be, they're gone from this time to this time for the rodeos. Mine shifts. So I've got rodeo schedule from April to September. I'll trickle in some speaking in there, but then from October all the way through March and even into April, April's kind of a switcher month. It kind of goes back and forth. I'm speaking. So I'm really not home very much ever. It just depends on what I'm gone for. So whether I'm in a truck and a trailer with a horse or I'm on a plane going to speak, I'm really not home that much. I mean, literally I fly out again tomorrow to go to Illinois. I'm speaking in Quincy, Illinois. No, I don't fly out tomorrow. I fly the next day. See, I can't even keep my schedule straight.
I am with
No.
I literally know what day it is by what town I'm in, and it's because it's in my calendar. I look and go, okay, if I'm here, it means I totally feel you. But so it seems like you like to keep busy. You're not one that wants to sit at home and be around too often now.
No, well, and it's even, I love being home. Honestly, that was the biggest blessings of the COVID time of life that I know was so stressful because within 2 weeks, right, all of my speaking engagements got completely canceled for the rest of the year. So that was so insanely stressful. But once I figured out what else I could do, that was the most I had been home since I bought my house. I mean, that was the longest span I had been able to be in my own bed in 3 years, was over that amount of time.
That's what was funny with a lot of, us touring artists, musicians was, the first couple of weeks that COVID hit, we were in the same boat. It's like, man, it's kind of like a little mini vacation. This is awesome. Then of course it kept going and kept going. It's like, okay, this isn't awesome anymore, but I know exactly what you mean. But it's kind of cool to hear the different sides of it because we talked with a girl here last week that this is her rookie year, and she was talking about how she's out 200 something days a year, doesn't want to be home. And then you talk to a couple of them that have been there doing it for 10, 20 years, and now it's family, and they pick and choose. They're very strategic about which ones. So it's cool to see the dynamic and the reasons why. I mean, obviously life happens. I mean, 2 years ago, I was in the same boat going, man, keep me on the road, put a stamp on my butt and send me wherever. And now I'm kind of like, yeah, okay, let's have a little bit of downtime. But
right.
It's
I
cool.
like to be choosy. You got to be choosy on where you're spending time. You don't want to wake up and realize that all you've done is be on the road by yourself, right?
Yeah.
I think that's even the difference is if you have somebody with you all the time, that you get to share everywhere you go with, well, then that makes a difference versus just all the places you've gone all by yourself.
So how do you travel? Are you just doing the truck and trailer thing, or do you have like a rig set up, or what's your travel like?
And in the rodeo part of life, I have my truck and my trailer. I did a few different weeks this last year that I had 2 different rigs going 2 places. Just that was this year because I had 2 horses that were nice enough that I could be in 2 different places. But when I'm speaking, I'm flying. So I literally just drive to the airport. I do that by myself. I just drive to the airport, get on a plane, and be wherever I need to be.
What have you learned to have a passion for one over the other now that you've been doing both, or is it still all about the horse?
It's very balanced between the 2, which I'm very lucky that I get to say, because I don't know how many people, get to love their hobby as much as their career and vice versa. I think that I'm super lucky. That's why I split my year the way that I do, because I love speaking. And at the end of rodeo season, I'm like, oh man, I'm going to miss being on the road to be doing the rodeos, and that's where I want to be. But then I get out on the road speaking and I'm like, okay, no, I love this. I love this. And then it comes to the end of speaking season and I feel like, gosh, I want to be speaking, and I don't know if I'm ready to be on the road all the time, driving versus flying. And then you get to the rodeos and that's where you want to be. So honestly, I'm happy. I'm so happy in their spot.
That's awesome. Well, was speaking something that was always easy to you, or did you have to transition? I mean, how did you even get into doing that? What started it?
I think I was given the gift of gab, which so that I think I've had since a kid, but honing in on those skills started in high school and then with the FFA. And then after my accident, when people started asking me to speak, it was like, okay, well, if I'm going to speak, I got to be good at it. That's something you want to be able to do. And that just through experience, honestly, of like, okay, that worked, that story didn't, they liked this, they reacted this way. And then you shift it depending on what your audience is. And I don't know, that's just come with experience. I mean, heck, and then this last year, well, not last year. What am I saying? Last week. I'm losing my mind. Literally on Saturday, I officiated my brother's wedding. So that was my first time doing that as well.
You are a jack of all trades. I love it.
So a little bit different speaking experience for sure, but it was awesome.
That's great. That's great. So sorry, I had a question lined up and then I started listening. ADD is a real thing, y'all. It's gone. But I know, so I saw you're featured in Yellowstone. I think that's where I was trying to go with this. How did all that come about?
Jake, he's in the bunkhouse now, is one of the guys in the bunkhouse. Originally, he was just the guy that brought horses on the set. I've been friends with him for a really long time. Even when my movie was getting filmed in New Mexico, he would take my horse during the week and keep him legged up, and then I'd be able to fly home and head to a rodeo on the weekend. And so we'd already had like a pretty good relationship going on what we were doing with horses. And then Yellowstone came about and he was involved in that. And so he was like, hey, I'm just gonna let you know, like I shared your story with Taylor, and if it ever fits, like he's gonna put it in there. So I was like, all right, didn't think a whole lot of it. 2 seasons go by and it's not got brought up. So I didn't think, honestly, it's not like I was bugged or anything. It was just, well, just didn't fit. That was fine. Well, then all of a sudden I get a call from him saying, hey, I'm pretty sure they're putting you in the script, so just be aware. So I said, okay, sounds good. I'll be aware that that's happening. Well, really, then I just got an email that said, hey, you're in the script. We need you here at this time so we can film. And I was like, okay, sounds good. That's what we're going to do. And we were able to make it work. And it was really neat.
That's always, I'm trying to remember my head. I'm a Yellowstoner. I love the show. I'm assuming it was around when Jimmy had the accident. Was that when they brought you in? I was trying to think in my head, it's like, that's the only thing that made sense, but that's great, man. I love that. I mean, that show's done a lot, I'm sure you don't know a lot about me. I spent 11 years in Nashville and had a couple of record deals, and I loved real traditional country music. And you're told every day, day in, day out, you can't do traditional. Nobody wants it. Nobody will listen to it. And I remember I kept saying, I was like, we need an urban cowboy movement so bad to help out the cowboy country. And then boom, Yellowstone. Now everybody wants to be a cowboy again. So I'm so thankful for that show. And so to you be a part of it, I'm like, okay, well, at least I got a little piece of somebody now that's been on there. So that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, it was neat. And it really has made a difference. I mean, whether all of the perspectives are correct on there or not, it's very entertaining. And it definitely has brought, like you said, everybody wants to now be a cowboy.
It is. I run with it. Well, let's go in now and start talking about the actual, like the days when you're riding and getting ready. I mean, what's your prep? Or are you a music person to get in the zone? Or are you one of them that wants to wait till the last minute and get on? Are you, very much planned and prepared? What's your process?
So I do like routines. So if a routine works, and I'm more superstitious than I should be. So if a routine works, I try to repeat it every single time after that. My horse, I'm not on very early. I don't like to be on anything very early. So at the rodeos, it's going to be 2 events prior to me. Honestly, almost just 1.5, because that's all I need. My horse doesn't need a whole lot. And I don't like to overthink. I don't want them to overthink. I like to just get on, get our job done, be ready for it. I'm not a music person. I mean, I am, like, I sing to myself if I get nervous, but I'm not like the type that I'm going to have headphones in my ears.
Right.
Trying to be that way. I feel like, I don't know, at this point in my life, I feel like I hope I'm zoned in and off on what my job is, that I don't need to completely tune out everything else that's going on. And I'm also not that person in the arena. There are people who say they can't hear anything. I hear everything.
I was about to ask you that, because every single person I've interviewed just said everything goes blank. They don't hear anything. And you were the absolute first person I've talked to that said that. And you beat me to the question. All right. So okay, go through that moment. Because, like I said, with me, with a concert, it's 90 minutes, or, somebody goes to work and it's a 8-hour, 9-hour day. You're out there for, X amount of seconds, basically. Like, go through from start to finish. What's it like?
So for me, I mean, I try to tell myself, I have what I tell myself before I go in, and that is be present and be brave. That's like what I tell myself. I always ask for God to give me steady hands and a clear mind. I feel like if he can do those 2 things, and then I can be present and be brave, then I can go in and do my job. So from there, I've made a plan on what my run should look like. I call it riding the road. So I want to make sure I ride that road that I'm supposed to be on. But yeah, I don't tune everything out. I don't know why I've not been able to do that. And it's never bothered me. I don't feel like it throws my focus off or anything, but it just doesn't go quiet for me. But I'm very much in tune on what my horse is doing and what moves he's making, right? Like I said, I want to be present. And so every move he's making, I'm making sure that I'm adjusting accordingly on what he needs me to be doing and where he needs me to be in order to be successful. Doesn't always go the way that you plan,
Right.
but that's the goal when you hit the alleyway.
Well, do you feel like I haven't been able to ask this question to anybody because obviously, like I said, everyone says they tone it out, but does it give you an adrenaline rush when the crowd, like for me being an artist, when a crowd is crazy and whatever, I mean, it fuels me and makes me just want to give it back, on stage. Is it that kind of a deal, or are you too locked in to really even to soak all that in?
I mean, I hear him. I hope my horse hears him more than me, because I know he feeds off of him more than even I do. I wouldn't say I like soak it in, but I hear it, right?
Yeah.
I hear it happening. I can hear them all screaming. I can hear what the announcer is saying, all that stuff that's getting said. I don't know if it necessarily makes me ride different. I hope it doesn't, because then I'm probably not doing what I'm supposed to be doing. But I do believe my horse feeds off of it. Like if he goes in and he does his job one barrel after the next and they get louder and louder and louder, I know he feels it, because then he tries harder.
Yeah. That's awesome. Well, as far as like training the horses, I mean, obviously I know you're limited on what you can and can't do, but even before the accident, did you like being a part of the training and the breaking process, or what did you look for in a horse, or how did you start with all that?
Originally growing up, yeah. I mean, I did it all myself, right? I only did only one completely start from finish. Like she was born out of my mare and I broke her all by myself.
Broke it.
Yeah, so I did that, but the
Hold
easier
on,
route.
I'm gonna start you and go the other question, because you're the first one that's actually answered that. Everybody said they at least wanted it to not be, bucking. All right, go through that process for us, because nobody's been able to talk about this but you. So I want to hear about it. What was that like?
So I was 11 years old. I was not very old, but
you broke a wild horse at 11 years old.
Well, I mean, she wasn't like wild, right? Like I raised her.
But
yes, started with square one at 11. And she was really good. Like, I mean, I'd spent all that time with her from the day she hit the ground. And so she was easy. She never bucked. Like that was not something that she did.
Yeah.
So it was a process. It was a learning process for me. I think there was a whole new level of appreciation for what it takes to get them from day one to majority of the time. We want them not to buck. And that's when we're going to get on, right? 2 or 3 year olds, right, or whatever that is. A very different level of appreciation to start from the beginning. Like legit, this horse doesn't know how to do anything. So you have to teach it what it means to touch their side of their face. You have to teach what it means when you squeeze them with your legs. You have to teach what it means to do everything. They're completely a clean slate versus, at least if you get them at a 2 or a 3 year old, right? They should at least know the basic concept of when you smooch at them, what they should do, or you kick at them or whatever. Very different level of appreciation. I loved doing it. I will never do it again. Well, for obvious reasons, I will never do it again. And honestly, yeah, at this point, I don't want to get on something that bucks. So I want them to be a lot farther along for me now than what they were then. But I used to break horses. I mean, it was my job. Like people would send their horses to me and I'd get them started and then I'd send them back.
I hope I can remember all these questions in my head that I've heard you talk on that I'm like, oh, I want to ask more about that. But I do want to go into one thing that's different. And I'm kind of dumbing this down because, for people my fan wise on my pages that don't know anything about horses, I don't necessarily ride to the point of knowing all that stuff myself, but I know that cues come from your legs and movements and that kind of stuff. And so with you not being able to do that, how did you change? I mean, did you have to train them differently, or how did that work to change up the cues that you would do with your legs that you can't do now?
So the majority of what I do with my horses is with my hands and my voice. I do want them all broke now. Like I don't want to get on them and have them not understand, right? I want them to know, which they're trained with their legs. So the people who start them, they train them, start them just like every other horse. They know how to move their body correctly with their legs. The shift is they have to learn to ignore what my legs are doing and pay attention to my hands. At home, like in the
I'm
practice.
gonna start there. Have you seen that it's hard to get them to understand that after they've been trained the other way? I mean, is it a long process or is it pretty quick actually?
Totally depends on the horse.
Gotcha.
Totally depends on the horse. And some horses will step up and they don't take advantage and they want to work with me and they're like, all right, that's what you can do. That's how we talk. This is good. We're good to go. Other horses are like, yeah, if your legs don't work, I'm not going to move that way. So those ones I usually don't keep, because if they want to take advantage of the fact my legs don't work, I don't need them. There's enough horses out there that want to work for me that I keep those ones.
Well, you may have just answered this, but I'm going to dive a little deeper and to see if there's more that we don't know about. So, like when you're having to pick out a horse, which I mean, for folks that don't know, you don't just go get a new horse every couple of years. You live with them for a long time and work with them. But when you are looking for a horse, what's changed now as far as what you're looking for compared to before the accidents after?
One, I want them to have a little bit more spice to them, because they need to want to run by themselves. So, I mean, I can't have they call them push style horses, right? Where you are asking that horse from the beginning to the end for everything it's giving you. I need one that when I let it go, it just wants to do that. It just wants to run hard. Not that I can't encourage them, I can. And I don't think that anything I have, I can just sit there. That doesn't work like that. Like I do have to be up over and riding them and asking them for what I want. But they're definitely a little more fiery than a few others for that reason. And I mean, I think that that's a little different for me, that I want them to be that way. And then they do have to want to respond to my hands. Like I said, the ones that don't, every horse knows that my legs don't work. It's not a secret. They know. They're smart enough. It's just which ones are okay with it.
Yeah. So, okay, I'm going to dive into some of the other questions here, which they're going to relate somewhat, but they're going to alter, which is why I'm really intrigued by this. So, one of the things we ask is do you see that it's harder for a female athlete compared to the guys in the rodeo circuit? But obviously with you and your condition, what challenges, I mean, besides the obvious, do you have to battle? I mean, is the community very competitive towards you, or are they very lifting? I mean, what do you have to go through and deal with when you're out at the, actually competing?
I mean, I don't think it's a whole lot different than other people. I think that, they're out there to try to beat me like everyone else. I don't think anybody gives me a shortcut or a head start or anything of the sort. I mean, they're out there trying to make a living.
Absolutely.
So they're not going to give it to me by any means. Now, do I believe that people are very encouraging and do support me on every single run? Absolutely. I do believe that is the case. But yeah, they definitely don't give me a head start or any leniency by any means. I mean, like I said, if I'm going to outrun them, it's because I legit outran them that day, not because they made it easy.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, we talked about music a little bit, but obviously since I am an artist, we should probably talk about that. What kind of music are you into in general? What's your thing to listen to these days?
You're not even going to like my answer, because I literally listen to Disney music. That is what I listen to.
Man, my whole thing, I don't know where it came from. My mom, my sisters, all their kids are like Disney freaks. They go to Disney 3 and 4 times a year. They got the channel. I literally finally the other day asked to borrow the login just to watch this new Hocus Pocus. And I'm like, I'm not buying this for it. So you can go hang out with them and whatever that Disney bug is, because it did not bite me.
Seriously, that, like, if I'm driving by myself, that's what I'm going to put on. It's going to be that. I think because it's so lighthearted all the time. Seriously, if I'm going to sing, that's what I'm going to sing to. Now, if I'm not listening to that, it's going to be any sort of country music, anything I can sing to. If I can sing to it, I will listen to it. If I can't sing to it, it doesn't work for me.
So Are you like full opera style belting out in the car when you're going down the road then by yourself?
Like mediocre, like right in the middle, right? Not enough I'm going to look like a maniac if you drive by me, but I'm definitely singing.
What's your favorite one right now?
Oh, my favorite right now,
are you into like the classic Disney stuff, or are you into the up-to-date new?
No, Princess and the Frog is my favorite soundtrack currently, which is kind of random because I don't even know why, but it is. That's actually my favorite soundtrack right now. So I listen to that quite often.
I love it. Yeah, my niece actually, she got a deal where through school and all that, she got to go work at Disney for a year. And so anyway, all my family used it as an excuse to go down there every chance they could. I like it, but like I said, it's in small doses. But that's funny. If you knew the ongoing jokes about my family, you would know why that's so hilarious to me. But that's a cool. Well, I'm pretty much out of questions that I normally would ask. This has been a great interview. Is there anything that you'd like to get across, or any messages you'd like to send to people, or how can we find you? All that good stuff.
Well, anyone, you can find me on all of my social media, of course, on Instagram, Facebook. What is there now? TikTok, YouTube.
Something new every week, isn't
Goodness
there?
gracious, on everything. So you can find me on all of those. I always answer around messages. Sometimes it takes me a little bit longer than other times. So people can find me there. Is also to book speeches. You can find me on any of those locations, as well as my website, which is just amberleysnyder.org. Yeah, follow along. Thanks for having me on here.
Well, I appreciate it. And hopefully I'll run into you here on the road at some point. If you don't have a chance to come to the show, I'll have to come see you speak. I'm intrigued to see that too.
Yeah, that sounds awesome.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, thank you for joining us, and good luck. Are you, actually, I should ask that, are you going to be competing in NFR or anything like that this year?
I made my wilderness circuit finals again. So that was my goal of where I wanted to be, was at the wilderness circuit finals again. So I will be there.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, if we end up out there, I'll make sure I look you up.
Okay, sweet.
All righty. Have a good one. Thank you.
Thank you.